Hello and welcome to the Automation Village Virtual Trade Show Halloween Edition. My name is Chris Little.
And I, Dave,
And that is
I'm
Dave Spencer. Dave is coming to you live from the bottom of the ocean, and
That's right.
I'm coming to you.
Let me work on that while Chris speaks here.
So once again, welcome to the show. We're coming to you live for an hour. We've got a number of panel discussions. We're going to have Tim Donaldson in from our Northeast United States office, and we're also going to show some Halloween-themed, what would you call them? Video homilies, cautionary tales,
These
spooky
are
SCADA stories.
Scary stories that we've heard that may be based on fact, but also may not be. We're not quite sure. But nonetheless, they should be really enjoyable for everybody. So
it's true. So before we get any further, as many of you know who have been here before, we give away spooky cash prizes. So a little later in the show, twice I believe, we're going to do this.
That's right. Yep.
We're going to actually put on the screen a phrase that you are then going to put into your email and send to Natasha Lutz, and we'll give you all that information. I think we're looking at that slide right now. So stay tuned. Could happen anytime.
That's right. So, and Chris, not everybody can apply for the contest. There's a few people who can't. For example, those who work for VTScada, but also anybody who was presenting today, their friends and family also wouldn't be able to. I don't think that's as big a problem today, but
that's true.
And mostly fictional characters on the show today.
No fictional characters can apply for the contest. And if you want to know the full contest rules, simply go to the live stream. You can read it in the description.
That's right. And for those of you who are watching who are new to VTScada, we will also be showing some VTScada content. We'll be showing some features and other things and kind of walking you through a few live demos where Chris and I will attempt to do the high diving act in our Halloween costumes.
That's right, which we haven't done yet. We may burst into flames. You never know. All right.
Certainly inside the possibilities. Don't worry. If anybody's looking for the real high diving act, I do have a high pressure cylinder right behind me that could topple at any minute and get somewhat exciting.
Yeah, I thought I was a real big deal because I have a real top hat on, but that's nothing. You could actually be immersed in the ocean right now and you would live, whereas I would not.
That's right. When I wore this for actual Halloween, it's much easier to do virtually. The aquarium was very heavy to carry around from house to house.
Well, I thought the problem was the flippers, but I guess no. I guess that makes sense.
That is true.
So for those of you who are watching, like Dave said, if you are familiar with VTScada, you're going to learn some new stuff. We hope. If you have no familiarity with VTScada, you're going to learn some stuff. But if you have no interest in VTScada, we're also going to talk about a lot of general SCADA and automation related topics with some real world examples.
That's right. We've got some great stories coming up, and Pete and Chris have done a really awesome job putting together some animations and things to go with it. And if you're curious about whether or not you're part of the $1 Million Club, stay tuned because we've got that story coming up as well.
It's a real world SCADA story. One of the first I heard when I started
That's right.
with this company.
This one 100% definitely is true.
And this is the one we're going to put it at the end, just like in the TV show. Coming up next, who built the pyramids and why? This one's going to be the $1 Million Club. So stay tuned for that.
Right. So
now we're 30 seconds early for our next segment. Do we dare go on, Dave?
So yeah, Chris, I guess let's spend just a minute introducing it then. So our next piece is going to be our high performance Halloween,
and I believe there's a 10-second bumper for this.
Bing.
Boom. So yeah, we're going to talk about high performance HMI. Now, for a lot of people, they haven't always heard that term. Like when we talk to people in real life, when we're doing demos, visiting customers or in a trade show booth. But when you actually start to break out what it means, a lot of people kind of nod their heads and say, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Or I get what problem that solves.
Right. Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. And so really just starting. So high performance, the idea of these high performance graphics has all been kind of rolled into ISA 101, which is not as well known as some of the other ISA standards that we're seeing.
Right.
Like 18.2 came out quite a while ago, and a lot of people we run into recognize 18.2 now. 101 deals more with high performance graphics, but also deals with kind of a higher performance screens and other things in general, even in going into detail about, you know, how screens should be placed and how you should be able to kind of zoom in and out of an application to see the different things. So it's a great spec.
And what it really does is the intention is to manage complexity, because it used to be that, as most of you know, it used to be very expensive to add a point of data to a system and then put an alarm on that. It involved a lot of time and actual money and configuration and maintenance. But now that's changed, and now things are much cheaper. It's becoming much more possible to throw a ton of I/O onto your SCADA system and put alarms on everything very easily. And then the problem is, well, how do you have the same number of operators, or in most cases, a fewer number of operators managing an increasing number of tags and alarms? So things like ISA 101 and ISA 18.2 were both developed to kind of to help manage that increasing complexity.
Yeah, you've got it exactly, Chris. So, you know, as we go into that, the idea being that, you know, how do you manage so much information? And also, oftentimes now what they're doing is they've kind of moved the systems away from necessarily being, instead of being a look at your plant, they're really trying to say that, okay, before the alarm occurs, can we tell you that things are starting to look outside of the normal? So that's actually kind of a new paradigm coming in, is kind of these expected values in normal conditions. Right. And then you're kind of saying, well, we're not into a state where we'd alarm on, but certainly we can see that we're outside the state where this typically operates, right. You know, and then you can decide from there whether or not, you know, you want to act on that sort of preemptively, right. Or do you want to hope that it sorts itself out because there is something weird going on.
You're trying to prevent the SCADA system from being the engine light on your car, that, you know, when the thing flashes red, you know you're already hosed. So you want to be able to, the system to actually give you an indication that there's an oncoming problem that you can get out in front of.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the way it kind of does that is basically is keeping to very gray, unsaturated, muted colors under normal circumstances. Which
absolutely. And Chris,
ironic.
I think to talk about this a little bit, I'm going to bring up my screen here. Let me do a screen share.
While you're doing that, I'll just say that you know, when I came to the company, when I started going trade shows, people would say, "Oh my goodness, we love your software, the redundancy, the connectivity, but your graphics are not great." And then a few years later, we released one of the version 11s, and our graphics went from being not great to the best. And also the easiest to configure. I think our Idea Studio, which we're going to show a little later, is one of the nicest ways to create graphic screens. But the irony is that at the same time that we started to be able to create these very rich 3D photoreal kind of dials and dashboards, this idea of ISA 18.2 came out, which is when it goes the opposite approach. It says, make everything simple, make everything a line diagram, make everything gray, so long as everything's cool.
That's right. Yeah. So, and a big part of that, I think you're looking at my screen now.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to bring up one of these lift stations. And so I've got a very, very simple display here that shows sort of just the basic information on the lift station. And you can see here that we've got a few alarms that were in here. And right at the top here, you're seeing that alarm that we're inside of that alarm condition. So it looks like I have a little bit of a misconfiguration in my system here because we're seeing a whole bunch of different alarms. But part of the reason
Get out of there, Dave.
done
Get
that
out of there.
Was in a few minutes when we talk a little bit more about ISA 18.2. The big thing here to look at in this is you're starting to see, so you're seeing indications here on where the system's been, but also where you'd expect it to be. So this darker blue is showing the history of where it's been over a certain time period. This lighter blue is showing the expected range, and this white area and darker area are showing areas where you would have certain conditions. So this whiter area isn't really an issue, but it's outside of your expected. But this darker area here is showing that you're actually going into an alarm and that you're probably going to have a little bit of a flood situation. So let's just put these stations into their normal mode, and we'll show you how that kind of looks.
That's a good distinction to make, because, I mean, really, what do you need an alarm for? Not when something is unexpected, but when something is unexpected and bad.
That's right. Exactly. So this area here is outside the norm, but perhaps perhaps okay. Here you'd probably get a little
Right.
nervous that the pump's not keeping up with it. Here you maybe aren't that concerned because you'd say, well, it's below my pumping point, but
Right.
you know, is it really? So is there a problem with the sensor that it's showing this area, or is
Right.
it actually that there just isn't much water in this well?
Dave, I have a complaint about this display. That trend is really simple and small and doesn't have all the stuff that I normally associate with a trend. What gives?
Oh, that's a great point, Chris. So what you're looking at here is actually a spark line, and the spark line is
Ah.
set up to be a super efficient version of a trend. But if we wanted to, we could click on our well level here, and now we're getting that HDV window. And if we want, we can also compare a couple of these. I'll just bring up a few of them here.
Nice.
And so it's that idea of click to trend. And let's just break them apart so we're looking at them individually. And if you see that little bit of roughness in those, it's because I've got a deadband set up. Because it's a well level, I don't need it to be accurate to, a 1/10 of a millimeter.
Right.
So I've put in something sort of reasonable.
A deadband.
The deadbanding that, we want to see there.
Right. Yeah, so the spark line that you would see on the high performance screen is really just to give you a sense what's been happening in the last 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever you configure it to be.
Yeah, that's right. And if we bring up that configuration, you can see that if I grab my spark line here and go into my properties, then I can just define it right here. So you can see that I'm doing, and I probably could have picked better numbers here. I think 70 points was because of the width. But yeah, I could have made those match actually a little bit better pixel for pixel. However, you can see it looks pretty good. So the system's done actually a nice job of the anti-aliasing in not having those sort of jagged steps where the pixels and time periods don't quite line up.
Nice. So what's nice about this, well, first of all, what's nice is that this is designed such that even if you don't have a lot of training on this system, you could look at that bar and indicator that you've got there and have a pretty good idea. If you're just vaguely familiar with high performance, then oh yes, this is where I expect to see it. This is where it's been recently. This is where it should not go. Whereas on an standard, on an oldie style SCADA screen, you might see 45, and maybe 45 is great, or maybe 45 is get out of the plant before it blows up.
That's right. Yeah. And even in these little spark lines here, like you say, and this is one of the big differences. These spark lines are built for efficiency. So you can see here that I have a whole bunch of trends. These have extremely small impact on the system performance, having all of these trends. Whereas if I had the full HDV drawn many times, then there's a bigger impact on the system because of how this is rendered. So, like you say, this allows you to draw tons and tons of little spark lines if you have a large system without having a big impact on performance.
I also like about this, your version of this, and it speaks to the fact that even though it's a standard, it's not a rule. It's not, but this is a sort of a blended approach to high performance. Everything isn't strictly speaking gray, but it still uses those concepts to draw the operator's attention to where it matters.
Yeah, you've got it exactly, Chris, actually. And if we wanted to, one of the things is this map is got a little bit of high performance tendency, but not maybe fully. We can actually pull up the standard map, which is got a number of different colors in it. The one I had up was slightly desaturated, but we can even go to a much more desaturated map. Or for those of you who are going into kind of a dark mode, you can go into a very dark map. And I think that this doesn't render as well through our video processing because of the blacks and grays and things. But
every time I try to use this map in marketing, people say, "What's that? It's black. It looks terrible. Get rid of it."
Yeah, I agree. In real life, this map actually looks quite nice. It's great, but it definitely does not render well through the different video encoders.
Especially if you're in a dark control room, it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, and so I guess on that, Chris, did you want to jump to? We could jump with the ISA 18.2 a little bit.
Yeah, so Dave's been talking about ISA 101, the sort of elements of VTScada that were built around that idea, which is about screens. And there's this very similar kind of another recommendation called ISA 18.2, and that's about alarm management strategy. So if we go to the active alarm, we can see on the left there, if you look at the alarm list, every operator should be able to easily know what the status and the priority of an alarm is. But what happens, and typically it's done with stripes of color, and with older versions of our alarm manager, people call it looks like angry fruit salad. But the problem is not everybody sees color the same way. So if you'll notice on the left-hand side of the screen there, we just have two alarms up right now. You can use shapes and numbers and colors and also sound in order to tailor that list so that everybody on your team, even those with who maybe can't see color or can only see some colors, are able to make sense out of that. And Dave's showing you the alarm priority tag that allows you to kind of do that very easily and reuse those. It's kind of like a style tag for your alarm. Well, it defines what your different alarm priorities look like, both in terms of shape and number. And so at a glance, you should be able to see what the status is. And if we go back to the actual list here, it's very simple. If you right-click on, let's right-click on an active alarm. Oh, that's our history. This is all the stuff that's ever happened. So I guess what Dave's showing you right now are pre-built filters of alarms. So you can see the filter that shows the history, the filter that shows the active, the filter that are unacknowledged, the current alarms, shelved alarms, which we'll talk about in a moment, disabled alarms, always good to know what you've turned off, and so on. But you can also use the tools up in the top menu to create your own filters very easily, so that you can go in and narrow down what could be again, if there's an alarm flood in progress, this could be full of alarms, and maybe you are responsible for just some of them. So very quickly you can go in there and have a look. Let's go to active alarms for a second. There's the filter right there. Let's go to active alarms.
I knew you were going to focus on this. I'll forewarn you slightly, Chris. Active alarms is actually right now in my templates.
Right.
I made a change to create some more alarms before this, and I should have actually disabled those tags. So you'll see those active guys are gone away, but we can pick on the unacknowledged.
Let's do that. So if you, as you can see, there's a big ACK button on each of those. But if you right-click on it, and you can see the priority, if you right-click, and you'll see this menu comes up. So again, you could acknowledge. And one of the other things you could do, which is important to ISA 18.2, is shelve the alarm. So periodically, you'll need to do some maintenance on a PLC, or that you know about, or that a PLC has been damaged or disconnected. So you can go in there and actually say until a specific date, or for a specific period of time, or indefinitely, and you can turn off indefinitely, that you can basically shelve that alarm, and then it shows up on the shelved filtered list, which Dave is showing you right here. So after that period of time expires, or once you get to that point on the calendar, that tag comes back, that alarm reinitializes, and if that alarm goes off during that time that it's been shelved, it will still be recorded in the history, but it simply won't make the annoying sound, because the problem is you want to avoid nuisance alarms. You want to avoid real problems being hidden by alarms that don't matter. And since I think we're probably running out of time here, let's go into these alarm reports. This is a very quick and dirty way to go in and do an alarm audit to make sure that all your alarms matter. So right now we're looking at bad actors. So these are all of the alarms that have ever gone off in order of how often they've gone off. So you can see down at the bottom that we, of course, generate this system to create a lot of alarms. But if you go up and look at 26 instances of that lift station alarm going off, that's a problem. We should probably send a human and go look at it. So let's go look at that page where that shows up. You can see these are the different pages where that shows up. You can find out more information about the alarm. See, that's where you can also open up a trend and see what that alarm's been doing. But more often than not, what it means is that that PLC was removed years ago and somebody didn't bother taking it out of the system. So there's an easy, low-hanging fruit to go in and say, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. So we stop getting these nuisance alarms. Alarm flood is a similar thing. And you could shelve it. Similar thing, if you've got a cloud of alarms that all happened at once, this is an easy way to kind of diagnostically go in and look at causality. How does these things typically unfold? What triggers what? And you can burrow in and see that. So that's a nice way to go in and tune your. Let's jump right to distribution of priorities, which is my favorite. So on the left or on the right-hand side, you'll see the ISA 18.2 recommendation for alarm priority. So of course, and this comes down to the culture of alarm management in your system. ISA is not a feature or a bunch of rules. It's saying you should decide what's important. So they say you should only have 5% critical alarms, 15% high-level alarms, and the rest are warning. So that means you've got to make decisions. What really is important and what really isn't. And
Yeah,
then
I
you
think
can
the
see,
big
of
thing
course,
is that when there's one or two alarms going off and everything's kind of day to day, then this is often less important. But when something bad happens, like you have a major weather event or something, and it's causing multiple disruptions inside your system, it's important at that point that the guys are really able to focus quickly on what matters most, and
absolutely.
isolate crews to work on that, and then deal with the less critical things, or even some things that may be an alarm but really are the fallout of something else, to deal with those at a slightly different priority.
So I think there's lots more to show you here. There's lots more in that menu, but I think if you'd like a full demo, just let us know, and we'll gladly do that for you and your team. And I think we probably need to move on to our next segment. Thanks, Dave.
Great.
Coming up next is, I'm not sure if we have a bumper for this or not, but we got spooky contest, scary prizes. You could win or you could lose. So on the screen right now is the phrase that you will now open your email and type natasha.lutz in the to field, and then in the subject add this. I'm tired of talking in that voice. And then in the subject, simply add this phrase, all caps, exactly as you see it. It will be machine read. So if you put in a typo, you lose.
That's right. So that was natasha.lutz@trihedral.com, and the to and spooky SCADA stories in that subject, exactly how you see it. So, and Chris, it's the prize for today is a $100 gift card to a very predictable online shopping vendor that we're not allowed to say the name of.
But it rhymes with Blamadon. All right. Very good. And now it's time for... Hey, Natasha.
Hello, everyone.
Do you have some scary questions for us today?
Scary voices.
Well, it's only scary if you can't answer it, and scary for your job.
I like my odds.
Okay. I think they're pretty good. So the first one I have is coming to us from LinkedIn, and it's, who do I need to contact to get a price list for VTScada?
Well, it could be me or Dave or Pete Diffley or Natasha Lutz or none of the above.
Or, I was going to say the internet.
The internet. You could go to our website. We make no secret of hiding our price list. It's right there in the main menu. If you go to our website, I think it just says pricing, and you can download a PDF of our standard price list, or even better, our bundled price list.
That's right. Yeah. And for those of you coming from a very large system, if you're looking for more than a 50,000 tag license, then do please reach out to us, because we do have some larger system pricing. We do large systems very well, but we find that in those types of systems, it often makes sense to have a discussion with us to talk architecture and other things, because at your system size, that usually becomes a more important piece of the planning. So we'll work with you on the pricing on that. Like Chris said, you can talk to anybody. Or nobody, and get that pricing.
And also, I do want to just do a little shameless plug while I'm here and while you're on our website, is we are currently nominated for 2 awards, one being Oil and Gas Engineering Product of the Year, and the other being Control Engineering Engineers Choice Awards. So while you're on our website, grab the link there to vote for us. Shameless plug. And I'll move right to my last question, and it is, what product do you use for your version control? And I'll be back in a few minutes with more questions.
Bye.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks. See you, Natasha. All right. So version control. I guess I'll share my screen on that. And give me 1 second here while I pull up.
Yeah, I think we're actually going to show a short video that we prepared on this very topic of version control. But to answer the question very quickly, the TLDR is we use VTScada. VTScada has built-in version control, which we're going to tell you about now. So again, that was one of the my first time in my first trade show time in the trade show booth. This was a story that I heard. Again, we've all sort of told some version of this story, and I don't even remember who told it to me. So I think Dave is going to. I think Dave is mute. He's lost his voice. He's been cursed.
Yeah, this is one that I think, Chris, dates itself slightly with the fact it's a phone line rather than a LAN cable.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, so we wanted to show you a quick demo on using the version control. So I will waste little time here getting into VTScada to go through this. So to start off, let's start by making a change to the system here. So, or even better, let me show you. And I'm sorry, are you guys not seeing my screen yet? Are you? Sorry. So Skype occasionally doesn't actually pop up that share.
I see it now.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to bring up here. This is my regular settings, and I'm going to jump out, jump back in. So these little gear icon up at the top. So the same application that we were just using. I'm going to grab that gear, and then we go down the side here all the way down to show version log. And what's cool about this is that you can see the different computers. So computer Abad is in sync with the versions. These are the other computers that have been connected to the application, showing in red because they don't actually have this latest version of the app. And you can see here different changes that we've made to our tag. So modified tag type lift station. And you can see when those changes were done. So what I'm going to do is just go actually go up into the settings, and let's just bring up the Idea Studio, do something quick and easy here. I'm going to pull this over, and let's go in and just add something slightly.
This is not high performance. Technically, this would be high impact. That's what we would call this.
Right. I'm going to put some of my diving gear on here. All right, so I don't want to spend too much time going into these stations and stuff, but you know what? Let's just go with this, and we could go up to the top. I've got it on auto deploy, so it doesn't really matter if I do this, but if I say deploy change, then that pushes that change out to be now published, and it's on the live system. So we jump back into our version control, down to the version log, and then you can see here this automated commit that's been posted to the top. And I can go into here and say reverse version change. And you see here the piece of code that's going to be changed. And the yellow means that we're going to remove it. Green would be adding something. And red would mean there was a conflict, which means multiple people were working on this page at the same time and did something that conflicted with the other. So you can have multiple people working on any page, any application, but they should be doing stuff that is going to conflict with each other. So if I apply that and say OK, and then you see the gauge is gone there. Now, what's neat about this is I can actually go back through the history of this application. And if I wanted to, I could go all the way back to a point further back in time, and I could say switch to this version. I could reverse out that change. And I could go into the version details back at this point and even see exactly what was done. So you can see here, I just changed this hook from a 0 to, or from a 1 to a 0. So basically, that's version control. Chris, did you want to talk a little bit about how you get version control into your VTScada system?
It's already done. Yes. When you install VTScada, version control is already there. When you create a new application, version control is already configured. Every configuration change you make after creating a new application is automatically configured. If you were to add a second server in redundant fashion, which we've done as a high diving act before, where that's how you get multiple people in that version list. You've got different people distributed across a network, some of them potentially having development access. Every change they all make now gets recorded. And then that version list is, if you've got redundant systems, servers, then that list itself is distributed automatically across all of those servers. So you don't have to manage a third-party product. You don't need to make sure that product continues to work with your system over time. You don't need to set it up at the top, and it's very easy to roll back anything that's ever happened. And your version list is protected across all of your servers in real time.
Perfect.
Dun.
So, and that's with any version. So whether it's development or runtime or whatever, that version control is part of your system.
Even our free 50 IO license, VTScada Lite.
That's right.
All right. And now we're going to bring in Tim Donaldson.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Welcome.
How's everything?
Good. I think you might want to watch your back.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Or either that or it's your butler trying to serve you your morning pumpkin.
Well, at least it's a healthy breakfast.
That's true. So, Tim, we're of course telling spooky SCADA stories, and when we asked everybody for them, you came up with one that was such a great example. Would you? I don't suppose you have a flashlight handy to shine on your face, but tell us about this spooky SCADA story.
Yeah, oh yeah, great, no problem, Chris. Thanks. So, a couple of weeks ago, I was on site with an end user as well as the integrator. We're doing it was a lunch and learn. We're actually serving pizza, and I wasn't eating pizza during my presentation, but they were all eating pizza, and we're going through the product demo, and someone in the room asked, "What version of VTScada are you running right now?" And I said, "Oh, version 12.02. Actually, I just loaded it this morning." And he says, "Wait a minute." He goes, "You have a demo. You had a demo this afternoon, and you loaded a new version of your software in the morning?" I said, "Sure, I do it all the time." I was like, I don't have, there's never been a problem, and I don't foresee one. So I always take the latest and greatest version and make sure I have that ready available to show you any new features and so forth. I said, not only that, I said, but last night I was prompted with a Windows update. And I went and did that from the hotel room, and everything's working fine, because I always want to keep my computer with, obviously with the latest and greatest. And they started looking at each other like, I have 3 heads for doing this. And then one of the other gentlemen piped up and says, "Hey, wait a minute, didn't we have a guy in here last week that kept having giving us a demo and had the Windows update thing flashing?" And well, I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, I didn't want to update my Windows during, right before our meeting, because I didn't know what's going to happen with my software." So I kind of chuckled at that. So obviously we have no problem doing it. Doing
In fact,
versus a version control, a version update of VTScada.
Right.
In fact, I think we're all obligated to do that in the sales department. We
It's
must
true,
run
yeah.
all Windows updates and all VTScada updates, even the ones that haven't been released yet for VTScada.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, actually, that was a pre-release. I think even at the time it was pre-release.
That's right. I was thinking. I think it's
I think
12.0.
the message came out from engineering that morning, and yeah, so I went ahead and loaded it.
Awesome. Yeah. So one other thing that people don't realize when we talk about doing that is that can also occur between redundant servers, and it's something that I didn't realize was a sticking point for a lot of softwares. But somebody pointed out to me was that you could have a Windows Server machine that's set up as a redundant to a Windows 10 machine. That really makes having those development licenses on things like your personnel laptops and other things really easy, because those can actually come in, take on the role of a redundant for different services. They could come in as a full thick client. They could do work on the system, and you don't have to worry about matching those OSs and other things. So also, if you have a redundant server setup, you can use an old computer for one side and a new computer for the other side, and upgrade them independent of one another.
Right.
So it's
you
just
don't have to take the whole system
that you
offline.
really want to have the same. And with Support Plus, that's easy because you just install whatever version you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so often you'll find on customer sites, you'll have that computer that's locked in a room that may be on the internet, maybe not on the internet, that's been unloved and or not unloved. It's just been isolated, sequestered, because they're afraid if they run an update that this will stop working, or that they know it works, don't touch it, leave it be. And that means not running a security update on their operating system. And maybe they'll think that that's fine because it's not on the internet. see a thing coming up later. Or maybe somebody plugs the wrong USB stick into the system. Because and you're vulnerable because you haven't been running your security updates, and you're missing out on Windows features because you haven't been doing your Windows updates. So we don't require people to sort of freeze their systems at a point in time.
Yeah, good point. Very good point.
And that's just a great story of because we don't you get used to doing presentations all the time, and often the things that kind of jump out at people aren't always obvious. You think you know what they are, but every now and again you get that moment where you have a room full of people going, at the idea of updating your operating system or your version of VTScada.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I do it every once a week or every other couple every
Right.
now and then. Usually a couple of months we get updates to do, and I've never had a problem with it. In my previous life with some other organizations, I probably wouldn't have attempted that. Probably like the guy that was in there a couple of weeks before me, but with VTScada, never a problem.
That's great. Well, Tim, do you want to stick around for our next conversation?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't mind. Me and Count we'll hang out for a little bit.
Apparently, we're all dead, so we have nowhere else to go. So,
Well, actually, I do have a meeting this afternoon. So,
okay.
After the automation.
Well, you'd be the undead at that point.
Yeah. Count will stay in the office, but I'm going to go off on the road.
All right. So I think we have a bumper to bring in another face here, another undead face. And we will be joined by Pete Diffley, who is actually the producer of this program and all other Automation Village virtual trade shows. Normally, we don't see his face, but this is what he looks like always during the virtual show.
This is what he should look like after the night he had getting all the bits together for the show today.
That's right.
This is not.
So welcome, Pete. How you doing?
Doing good. I am so happy.
And this is how Pete always sounds.
How are things, guys?
Yeah.
Good. I actually don't think we're on this slide anymore, but one of our previous slides showed in this graveyard tombstones that had the names of, as far as we know, dead programming languages, which...
I just ran the bumper again just so you could see it.
Oh, very good. There we go. Another thing that kept one of us up during the night. So what we're going to talk about now is we often are asked, what is your programming language for doing custom scripting? And again, we answer, it's VTScada. VTScada script. It's our own native programming language. In fact, it's things we never talk about. It's a reactive programming language, one of the first reactive programming languages out there. But people say, why would you bother doing that? I put to you, Pete, why would people why would somebody invent their own scripting language when there's already a bunch of stuff out there?
Great question. So our founder, Glenn Wadden, in 1986, he pondered that exact thought, and really it was looking at all of the languages that were there at that time, and he realized that for doing complex programs and advanced infrastructure type applications, that you couldn't actually use anything except more an event-driven program, and that's like he was looking at Pascal, at BASIC, at COBOL, at Fortran, and VB, and nothing was even close to what was actually needed. So he actually instead started writing his own language. And that language is completely event-driven. It's essentially, it was the start of reactive programming. I mean, it's actually a documented thing that he started with reactive programming in 1986. Now, if you said, well, what other languages do you have in now that would be like that? Well, it's languages that are now being used like for Facebook and YouTube and that type of large-scale application. So Glenn actually realized, okay, well, that was something that he needed to do. And the second thing was that the reason that we put COBOL and Pascal and Fortran and BASIC and VB in graves is because they're not around anymore. And that's a huge factor. So if you build a system and you decide, okay, well, I'm going to build it based on whatever, the latest and greatest, Glenn, he's right. Every time that people have adopted a certain language, including various flavors of Java, and those languages are gone when you look kind of 10 years on, they're gone. And he decided, okay, well, we need something powerful that our customers can continue to use forever. That's his mindset. So that's kind of in a nutshell, I guess, the key reason. And I'm still talking
Tim,
like I'm this figure, by the way. Sorry.
You're a method actor.
One thing that you talked about, Pete, was, I mean, yeah, Glenn didn't come out of the blue with this. He had spent a number of years working with companies, doing work where they're kind of reinventing the wheel every time and kind of realizing that this really isn't the best path forward. But this was before even Wonderware or anything was out. So I believe VTScada and Wonderware were released at the same year, I believe.
Right.
But one of the things that I wanted to note here was, Pete, you talked about, the reactive language, and going back a number of years, this was actually something that we had the mindset that VTScada maybe is for small systems, but, we had a researcher at Dalhousie who was simulating the nervous system and try to do research on the nervous system and the brain's interconnections with the heart, and then try to make an analysis of how tweaking different things affects other things. And so it's a massive simulation with many, many, many nodes trying to reproduce sort of stimulus between the nervous system. And he had selected VTScada for this very specialized application because of its reactivity in nature, and because of so it was built for things like lift stations and whatever, where you have these networks of devices. But the reality is, to scale that up to millions of nodes, VTScada was the language of choice. And he said it was the only language that he was able to really do this work in. And he's running this on a regular computer and not a supercomputer or something. And again, VTScada was the real difference. And he always tells me that he's just absolutely amazed that he has this very niche need for his research, and he found it, 20 kilometers away.
Right. So that's great. So Tim, let's go back to your presentation that in front of that room full of people. What do you tell them about sort of the importance of integrated features and maybe specifically the scripting language?
So we actually, what I'd like to do sometimes when I'm showing that is, I'll bring up our Idea Studio and show them, okay, here's a bunch of widgets and so forth, and that you can drag over and use these within your application. But then if you just want to change a parameter, we give you a lot of the stuff with it's pre-configured with configuration menus that you can go in and change. But if you want to do a little bit more advanced work with that, you can actually just pop over into the scripting language and make any changes there. But having that fully integrated scripting engine along with the product allows you to be able to do that. And because we own everything there, it's seamless integration. We're not relying on Microsoft to come up with a new version of VBA or something like that to put into our product, or Java to Java plugin is going to cause a failure to my critical SCADA system. We don't have those worries.
Right. That's right. And Tim, to your point there, VTScada was voted the quickest to, or not voted, I guess, but through a research program, was selected as by far the quickest to release a patch for any kind of vulnerability. And a big part of that is that all of the functions, the methods, the code, the servers, everything is done by us. So we're not waiting on third parties to patch and then to have that trickle down through to something that we can integrate into the product. If we need to change something overnight, then we could do it. And there's been plenty of times that somebody has worked overnight because they've decided that something needs to be fixed right now. Oftentimes that doesn't make it to a build that our customers see, but they say we've had it. Yeah, if a high priority incident comes up, then typically it's worked on until it's completed pretty well straight through.
So that's more than all the time we have to talk about this. Thanks everybody for hanging in there on the tombstones. So basically we use our own language because we can support it forever, because it's powerful. It allows us to run very large systems on very simple hardware, and it makes us fast over a network. But that's
right. So, and it's pretty simple to program with as well. It's also well documented if you go into our help files.
So now we were going to do another segment of questions with Natasha, but she kindly gave us permission to jump that and go directly to our next feature, which is another sort of homily about network SCADA security called Tales from the Trusted Zone.
I think this is the one I alluded to earlier, so it will make sense now.
Here we go.
All those notes you made.
Here we go.
Design in your mind a scary SCADA scenario of the following specifications. Meet Stephanie Jobstress, a superintendent of a utility responsible for the taps and toilets of thousands of residents. All day, she works tirelessly to keep the process running efficiently using their state-of-the-art SCADA system. But each night, she worries that some network ne'er-do-well, some digital dementor would hack her system and lay it to waste. To keep her system safe, she decided that there would be no remote operator access, no interfaces to third-party systems, no connections to the internet whatsoever. She slept soundly knowing that her SCADA sat securely in the trusted zone. Meet Nick Nightshift. He's the operator who watches over the system while the town sleeps. Each night, Nick stares at his monitor, waiting to spring into action at the first sign of an alarm. On those nights, Nick feels happy and alive, but the rest of the nights feel very, very long. So long that Nick had to do something to keep from falling asleep on his keyboard, something that led him deep into the Radio Shack, where he bought 100 feet of telephone cable, with one end plugged into his SCADA server and the other into a business computer down the hall. He would chat with friends and play online games like Blocko and Blades of Battle Online. While not best practice, he was sure that it was fine, since their system was deep in the trusted. Meet So Is Your Mom 245 at hotmail.com, a hacker who spends nights pounding Mountain Dew and sniffing for open ports on the internet. It didn't take long to find the unsecured office computer, but it took 3 Kit Kat bars to figure out that it was connected to a critical water system. After that, all our superintendent's worst fears came true, and for a while, the taps and toilets did not flow. This utility learned the hard way that the trusted zone is not a single IT policy, but a culture of security where everyone is aware and prepared for attacks from unlikely vectors. They learned that the trusted zone is a state of mind.
So that was another one of those stories that I heard around the campfire in the trade show booth. And again, I can't find who it was who originally told me that, but the story of the 100 feet of telephone cable was one that I've repeated often.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. And it really does describe a point of something, that I've had experience with in a previous company. I think at VTScada, we do it really well. We've got a great IT team who helps make life pretty easy for everybody. But previously, I remember being locked down to, a 10-year-old version of Internet Explorer because of IT policies that, they even had things like, YouTube's blocked. And
Right.
YouTube actually is an important part of me doing my job these days. A lot of people go to YouTube for tutorials on something,
Yeah.
So even using CAD software, we were just sort of, left without resources where you're on your phone or you're where I was previously. I knew that I could change my port number if I needed to access YouTube all of a sudden. But it was, again, exactly the example that you're given, Chris, is, people are finding ways around these.
Right. And if you don't manage that, they'll find their own way and it won't be good. So,
Yeah, and
Tim,
if you do manage it, they'll find their own way. So in some ways, having a system that allows the users to do the things they need to do to get their job done efficiently is a much safer system than the system that says nobody can do anything, because they will find, it's that Jurassic Park. They will find a way.
So Tim, you are the sales contact for the northeast of the United States for VTScada for about a year now. But you've been working in this industry in that area for a very long time. You're from there. Tell us about how issues of culture of security come up in the northeast for your customers.
It's here in the Northeast. I mean, you have a few different industries, but security is a factor just like anywhere in the country. Whether it's a water municipality having security, but also here in the Northeast, we have a lot of pharma companies and so forth. They take security to another level. Obviously within their production facility, which is a good thing. It's kind of the same as what you see throughout the country.
Right. And so the real danger is that people think it becomes a very binary argument about making your SCADA system available on the internet. Of course, there's lots of advantages to making it available on the internet, but the cudgel that keeps being used is, but it's not, you can't 100%, it's not completely. So then but then the assumption is if you don't put it on the internet, you're safe, you're good, no worries, everybody relax. Right. And as we've talked about in previous discussions in this live stream, that could be a very dangerous assumption.
Yeah. What a particular architecture that I've been seeing some people adopt here in the Northeast, actually, it's in other parts of the country as well, but going to a 3-server type of configuration where you have your primary and your backup server controlling your network, and that's inside your industrial network. And then you have to serve, obviously you're going to want that thin client connectivity outside of your industrial network for monitoring only. They'll put that 3rd server probably in the DMZ, and that server is just controlling all of the communications to phones or tablets or other computers outside the organization or outside the facility that needs to control the not to control, but need to monitor something.
That's a really good point.
That's right.
Yeah. Tim, and we're seeing a lot of people do that various ways. Some people are doing it through things like a master app, and other people are doing it different ways. But the idea being to bring back, you could even have many systems going back to a secure server if you have a budge, and that one server is managed to allow those connections to come in, but the other servers are staying in a more isolated area.
Right.
That's right.
And the nice thing about VTScada is, I mean, our architecture allows for that type of configuration.
It's something that we definitely forget about quite a bit. Is that that 3-server architecture is fairly unique.
That's right. I just wanted to bring up a point. Jonathan Bell on our stream as well, one of our viewers, he said that it requires trust to work and education as to why or what should be avoided, because people will find a workaround and often it's seen as a challenge. Telling people no never works without a reason, and that's a great point, because I mean we've seen that footage where you could actually see where the guy in the control room, and he put the post-it up when the newsroom were in actually looking at it, and there was his password, and you could actually read it clearly from the the news channel.
Yeah,
and that is very much cultural, and I think that that's a great point with
the irony of that is they were responding to, I think, a security mistake in that interview.
Oh, I wonder who was guilty.
Pete, I have a question. It just occurs to me: is that squirrel whispering all those answers into your ear?
It's a mouse who's standing.
Oh, sorry.
It's a little mouse here. Yeah.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Mouse is going.
It's my mouse.
Undead mouse.
So, you talked about Jonathan, and I do want to shout out to Jonathan as well. I noticed his comment earlier about it says high performance or high impact, and he said why not both? And I'm 100% with you, Jonathan.
Exactly.
Is why not both? I think that's that's the answer that I think a lot of people should take away when they read the different specs. Is these
and
are
the other
guidelines.
thing is. Yeah, and the other thing is that you can design a bad screen using high performance. Now high performance has been around long enough that people are also using that to make bad screens. So good design is good design. Just because it's gray doesn't mean it's high performance.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
One thing I've seen is a combination, like Dave alluded to. It gives you the best of both worlds. So your high performance for certain areas, it kind of cleans up some of the clutter. but then for some things you definitely want some color or something to jump out at you.
Right.
Or you want to see that tank actually filling. So
right.
I've seen a lot of applications where the spec may call all high performance, but then once they start building it, when they interview the operators and so forth, they're actually adding in some of the more traditional type of graphics as well.
That's right.
I call
It helps you keep an eye on things.
Well, we're talking about having a lack of color. Perhaps we should jump to our next video, which is you can find out whether or not you are part of the $1 Million Club, like our next presenter.
Also, thanks, Tim. Thanks for joining us. It was great having you on again.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, take care, guys.
Always
Enjoy.
great, Tim.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Let me tell you an automation horror story. This tale, entitled The $1 Million Club, takes place more than 20 years ago. A young software engineer was working on a floating production, storage and offloading platform, an FPSO, in the middle of the North Sea off the east coast of Scotland. These facilities make money by producing oil and natural gas from the ground. When these facilities are unexpectedly shut down, the estimated cost of deferred production is $1 million. Deferred production is called this because the oil and gas is still in the ground, but it is not being produced. And the cost of the facility and the operations to maintain that facility amount to this value. The young software engineer had been sent offshore to work on the subsea control system. Having completed his work, he was stranded on the vessel due to inclement weather. The offshore installation manager requested that he help with some hydraulic work on the subsea controls. Not being familiar with the practical aspects of hydraulics, a hydraulic technician was assigned to work with him. They made their way to the hydraulic power unit, which was towards the bow of the vessel. The first job was to isolate the subsea hydraulic supply, which was used to actuate the valves on the seabed. This was done by isolating one particular valve. The valve was identified, and the hydraulic engineer reached out his hand and turned the valve. At that precise moment, the flare stack went from a small flame to a large roaring inferno, and the general platform alarm sounded, announcing that the production facility had shut down. It was not coincidental that this happened at the same time. The software engineer and hydraulic tech made their way back to the control room, where the mistake was identified. The hydraulic valve was manufactured in Norway, and the threads were reversed. So instead of isolating the subsea hydraulic supply, the subsea hydraulics were drained back to the vessel, shutting all of the subsea valves and the entire production. This is how they were indoctrinated into the $1 Million Club. Thank you.
And there you have it. That's the $1 Million Club. That's how you get to join.
That's right.
So we should thank.
So I can speak.
So that was from Pete Donaldson, who does sales and marketing out of our Scotland office. He's been with the company for decades now. So thanks for that, Keith. We appreciate putting that story to film.
Pete wears a ton of hats inside the company, so he's into lots of things. He's helped us a lot with the Automation Village, and he does engineering, development, sales, everything.
And now that brings us into the final stretch of our program. So before we finish, we will have the second of our prize draws. So on the screen right now, there should be a slide that says the second code word, which is
High Performance Halloween.
So put that into the the description.
Subject.
What do you call it? The subject line of an email, and in the, what do you call it? The one you send it to, the
one that you send it to.
Yes, the to field. Put in natasha.lutz@trihedral.com. Hit send. All of those entries will be put into this hat, and Dave's Velociraptor mask will pick out a winner.
That's right. Whichever one doesn't get eaten, you're the winner.
And again, I guess we probably should point out that people who work for Trihedral, people who know and love us, cannot enter this contest, but pretty much everyone else can.
Perfect.
And so a bit more housekeeping to do. We've been showing you VTScada in addition to sort of general SCADA topics. If you're interested in VTScada and want to try it for yourself, you should try VTScada Lite. It's not a demo. It's not a trial. It is a perpetual 50 IO industrial license that you can use in your factory, in your lift station, or in your backyard. What do people do?
We've got all kinds of people using it for automating their some of their home systems. We've got people using it in bees, microbreweries, all kinds of different places where it can be used. We've also got lots of industrial applications like lift stations, and people using it all over the place.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get your feet wet. And also, if you know nothing about VTScada and you've downloaded that, on the same page where you download it, there's a short video embedded there. It's about 15 minutes. And of course, we have week-long training courses for VTScada as both our basic and advanced courses. But if you really want to know, how do I make an app? How do I create a tag? How do I connect to I/O? How do I draw it on the screen? The 15-minute video will get you up and running.
That's right. It's perfect to get people started, and you can take it from there. So if you're in VTScada Lite and you have a question, hit F1, and it will probably bring up an answer to whatever you're looking at the time. But it's searchable. Everything's there. And if you need help beyond that, you can reach out to our forum, or you can reach out to whoever your local salesperson is.
Like Tim Donaldson, who we just had on a moment ago, if you're in the northeast of the United States. So once again, as we wind up, thanks to Tim for joining us. And thanks to you, Dave. Thanks, Natasha, for your questions. And thanks, Pete Diffley, for wearing all your crazy hats. And also thanks to your squirrel for all of the answers it provides you.
That's true. I think, yes, that's squirrel is spinning wheels in the back, or spinning those plates in the background.
So thanks,
Chris,
everybody.
Big thank you to you. As always, it's you really carry the shows, and you did I'm still so impressed by that presentation or that video that you put together, knowing that a lot of that was done in PowerPoint for people watching. So it's pretty impressive to see all those animations and effects and transparency layers and things that are just timed together so perfectly.
That's very kind. You know what I sometimes use PowerPoint for is presentations.
Right. It's funny. I do so much in VTScada these days that they say PowerPoint is, I'm still trying to remember, is it F5 for full screen? I can never remember anymore.
I should be doing this in VTScada. You're right. So thanks for that. And also thanks to you everyone for your time. I know there's a lot of pressure to be on Zoom all the time, to be staring at your screens all the time. We really value the fact that you came and joined us today. So we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Great. Thanks very much, everybody. And I believe you can join us next time on November the 19th. But
if you're on our email list, you'll find out.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, and as we go out, we've got one last thing. We wanted to find something fun to end it off with. As an example of automation, Pete Diffley, producer Pete and his mouse, have created this beautiful presentation for the season of Halloween. We will leave you with that.
Welcome to Monster Manor. on Baldwin Lane. A place of wonder, witches, and wizardry. Winnie and her two sisters, Wanda and Whoopsie, are brewing up a spell of good fortune. They send this your way to cast away anything unwelcome and unfavorable. Look upstairs at our zombie guests, on the way to their rooms to finish their homework they forgot to do. That ghostly figure in the garage is Miss Tiddlewinks. She is the hardest working of our crew. She tidies up, dusts, cleans, and shines. Give her a wave and she may smile at you. We hope you enjoyed your little visit to Munster Manor. Come back and see us again sometime. Ta-ta for now.